Subscribe to the Gian and Igo channels. 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 The scene I just described is the result of the tireless exploration by those famous scientists, archaeologists, and biologists to understand how humans discovered dinosaurs and why we named them dinosaurs. Let me start from the year 1676. At that time, a professor at Oxford University named Robert Plot was tasked with studying the strange stones in the university's collection. Upon seeing these stones, Robert was extremely surprised by their unique shapes. He believed that to have such shapes, these stones must have been strongly influenced by nature, making them look like bones. In Figure 2, it appears to be the lower femur of a human or some animal. This professor claimed it was the thigh bone of a giant, because he had found drawings of giants in Greek and Roman culture. Through ancient works, However, those arguments had too many flaws to convince people, and this discovery gradually faded into oblivion. 100 years later, Robert's research was used by Professor William Buckland in his scientific thesis. During his research, William built an extensive fossil collection. After searching for them in large quarries around the Oxford University area, William found a large lower jaw with many sharp teeth, several vertebrae, some shoulder blade fragments, and a few bones from the hind limbs. With those parts, William believed they had characteristics belonging to modern reptiles. And in his research, he named this species Megalosaurus, meaning giant lizard. William added that this reptile was up to 12 meters long and heavier than an elephant. Thanks to Sir William's research, humanity began to have the first images of prehistoric life. And that sparked public curiosity. Sometime after William's announcement, many people began to pay attention and study the giant bones more carefully. Not only that, some became dinosaur hunters, specializing in searching for fossil specimens. Among the first recorded dinosaur researchers were Gideon Mantell and his wife Mary Ann. In 1822, Gideon was a geologist and paleontologist, spending time studying fossils in the English countryside with his wife. During one fossil hunt, Mary discovered strange teeth along the road in Hetfield. After finding those specimens, she immediately informed her husband. Upon hearing the news, Gideon continuously searched that area for months. And indeed, he found more fossilized teeth and several other giant bones. Scientists at that time thought these teeth were too large for mammals or fish. After studying the specimens for a while, results showed these bones belonged to a large reptile species, unrelated to the Megalosaurus that William Buckland had described. After years of research with geologists and anatomists, Gideon discovered that the teeth he found had similarities with the teeth of herbivorous iguanas. However, since the fossilized tooth was 20 times larger than a typical iguana's tooth, he asserted that the owner of this fossil tooth must have been up to 18 meters long. From then on, Gideon believed these fossilized teeth belonged to an entirely new species. Initially, Gideon intended to name that species Iguanosaurus. But because this name was too closely associated with iguanas and could easily cause it, in 1825, Gideon named that species Iguanodon, meaning iguana tooth. With the first two specimens both related to reptiles, we understand why the popular image of these prehistoric creatures was that of giant lizards. Continuing Gideon's research, in 1841, British scientist Richard Owen named these fossils Dinosaur, meaning terrible lizards. However, we Vietnamese call them by the name Kung Malong. Sounds more majestic than. But at this point, the question humanity needs to ask is, why are dinosaurs only ancient traces? Where have they gone? Based on human understanding of history and biology, we have two possible answers to that question. First, they went extinct. Earth has undergone many changes in climate and living environment. The disappearance of up to 90% of species is a common occurrence on this planet. The second answer is more complex. They evolved. From what we know, organisms always have the ability to create variations to adapt to their living environment, creating competitive advantages to preserve us. Therefore, it's very possible that prehistoric dinosaurs became modern dinosaurs. They're just very different from what we typically imagine. The second answer might be more acceptable. But why do scientists believe dinosaurs didn't survive like other species, but instead believe they went extinct? The thing is, we found many fossils in the past century. This allows us to use modern technology to test dating with radioactive isotopes. When putting specimens through analysis, archaeologists confirmed that dinosaurs existed on this planet for at least 230 million years. However, there's a gap in history. This gap occurred around 65 million years ago. They confirmed that there are no traces of dinosaurs existing after 65 million. That means something happened to dinosaurs 65 million years ago. That period was also the transition between the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods. with the possibility that some impact changed the climate so dramatic that it changed the entire period, and from then on dinosaurs went extinct. Through observation and analysis of stratigraphy by humanity, we have much evidence showing that 65 million years ago was a period of great catastrophe. The catastrophe stripped away nearly 80% of life on the planet, including dinosaurs. The giant monsters of that time suffered enormous impacts. Whatever event occurred, it affected the global environment so strongly that organisms at the bottom of the food chain became the first victims. Plants, small mammals, all died first, leading to the decline of food sources for herbivores and predators. Over time, the decline in food sources caused the total number of herbivore species to decrease as well. Starvation is inevitable. When the sky loses its light, plants cannot photosynthesize. Here, the predators at the top of the food chain reign. Even the top predators suffer when their prey fall one by one. The food supply continues to decrease until there is nothing left to eat. And from then on, the top predators of the food chain lost to nature and went extinct. We have evidence showing intact skeletons from 65 million years ago, down to the sedimentary layers in the ground, all indicate that some terrible event occurred on Earth at this time. And that coincidence is not random. That horrific event is certainly the cause of the dinosaurs' extinction. However, what was that horrific event? This is when we begin to enter the debates among scientists in geology, history, geography, and even archaeology. The debate revolves around whether they will believe in a hypothesis of the darkest day or a terrifying era. In December 2013, the team of scientists led by Professor Brinkett of Lejeu University conducted a geological survey of the Deccan Traps volcano in India, which is believed to have experienced the largest volcanic eruption in history. But like every other historical eruption, we cannot underestimate its power. Dust and gases from the volcano can change the environment very quickly and intensely, leading to climate change, resulting in huge impacts on the survival of most plant and animal species on Earth. Therefore, the eruption is a strong candidate for the position of the dinosaur destroyer. During the survey, the research team found volcanic rocks containing some minerals formed in lava. This helped the team determine the time these rocks formed and how long the eruption event lasted. From there, scientists could predict how the eruption affected the survival of the dinosaurs. The results left the researchers astonished. It was formed 66.2 billion years ago, specifically in the Cretaceous. Deccan Traps released toxic gases and massive amounts of lava over a million years. Then finally, it erupted continuously and wildly. And around 66 to 65 million years ago, though the exact timing of this destructive deity's eruption cannot be determined, we can estimate it erupted continuously for 30,000 years. Not only that, Deccan Traps is a cyclical volcano. It erupted repeatedly over the next 500,000 years, erupting until it reached 1.5 million cubic kilometers of lava during its active period. Because the eruption lasted so long, toxic gases emitted from the crater heavily polluted the atmosphere. Heavy gases like sulfur dioxide, SO2, or carbon dioxide, CO2, continuously emitted over a long period changed the atmosphere. SO2 is a toxic gas that suffocates all living beings and accelerates decomposition. It also creates acid rain, causing plants to wither. And then a chain reaction follows, causing many other organisms to fall. But it didn't stop there. Sulfuric acid generated in the atmosphere seeped into the ocean, killing all plankton. And obviously, most marine life suffered the same fate. It didn't end. When we thought the catastrophe was over, things worsened as large amounts of CO2 infiltrated the atmosphere. This is a gas with a special ability to create a greenhouse effect. The climate was affected, making the environment harsher, and species already on the brink of extinction officially disappeared from the planet. The chain reaction occurred continuously, lasting nearly 1 billion years, leaving almost no organism able to survive this mass extinction. However, this is only a hypothesis based on clues from a whole. We don't have a time machine to be certain that Deccan Traps caused this mass extinction. It might not be the only event. Perhaps Deccan Traps had an accomplice from space, an extraterrestrial death. Somewhere around 65 million years ago, on a fine day like any other, a bright star suddenly appeared in the sky. Those who thought this was just a celestial body passing by Earth like any other were surprised when it crashed straight into Earth on the peak day of the disaster. And what was the result? It completely matched what I described at the beginning of the video. But which one is the main cause? Perhaps both events occurred simultaneously. We could say this was the universe's most brutal insult to the dinosaurs. Maybe the asteroid impact triggered the decantrast volcanoes, or perhaps the decantrasts had been active independently before. But whatever the cause, both events happened during the same period 65 million years ago. When dinosaurs faced such a series of disasters, it's not hard to understand why they no longer exist. This raises another question. If all living creatures disappeared from Earth 65 million, then why are we here, right on this planet? Perhaps the answer needs to go further, but it's not hard to realize that not all dinosaurs went extinct. A few survived the disaster and evolved to adapt to the new living. So, saying dinosaurs have always been around isn't wrong at all. Researchers discovered that today's birds evolved from dinosaurs when they saw their brains grow larger and their shapes change. Scientists traced the connection between brain development and skull transformation across generations to explore how the reptile lords turned into birds. A research team from Drew University, led by Associate Professor Bart and Chicxulub, found important changes in reptile skulls that helped them trace the evolutionary path of dinosaurs. According to Professor Bulla, who is also the assistant in charge of paleontology and vertebrate zoology at the Peabody Museum of Natural History, he stated that during the transformation from dinosaurs to birds, the skull became very large and the brain grew bigger. He said the research team was surprised because no one had ever suggested that fundamental parts of the brain, like the forebrain and midbrain, correlate with each other, or for some reason they relate to the development of the frontal and parietal bones. Although previous studies showed a general connection between the brain and skull, the relationship between specific brain regions and individual elements of the skull remained unclear. Dr. Bolna and colleagues tracked the evolution of the brain and skull shape throughout the lineage from reptiles to birds. They discovered that most brains and skulls of reptile species were remarkably similar. The dinosaur species closest to birds, along with birds themselves, have differences: larger brains and bulging skulls. Professor Bolna added that the research team found a clear connection between the frontal bone, parietal bone, and midbrain. The researchers confirmed this by examining embryos of lizards, crocodiles, and birds using a new contrast tomography technique. According to them, this connection can be found in all vertebrate species with large skulls. And that indicates a profound developmental relationship between the brain and the skull roof. This implies that the brain produces molecular signals that guide the formation of the skeletal framework around. Although we still have relatively little understanding of the exact nature. Finally, one of the most important messages here is that this evolution appears much simpler and more elegant than how it's typically portrayed. Matthew Fabry, the lead author of this study, believes this discovery is an important milestone in approaching the morphological transition process from reptiles and dinosaurs to today's birds. Some scholars believe these dinosaurs would sing like birds rather than roar like monsters. Thus, until now, we have been completely mistaken in saying dinosaurs went extinct. That's just that in form, they. What's your opinion? Please leave it in the comment section below. Thank you for watching the entire video. See you in the next one.